was alert. Okay.
Hey everyone,
Yeah.
thanks for joining me. Welcome to the Travel Collective. Today I'm excited to have a conversation with Juergen Barbusca. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. He's the author of this great new book, No Overnight Parking, and you'll be able to get it at Coppercat Books soon. And instead of checking into hotels and traveling in that way, Juergen chose to experience the world from a van. So we're going to talk about his van travels, what he learned along the way, and maybe a little taste of some of the people he met. And then to get the rest of the stories, you'll have to pick up the book, No Overnight Parking. So welcome, Juergen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let's start with the title, the No Overnight Parking. Where did what's the story behind it for those who aren't familiar with this type of lifestyle or traveling in this method? Because I think it ties into that.
Yeah, well, there's two ways to look at it. One is the physical, and the one is as a metaphor. So the physical is a sign, the actual sign that we see everywhere now from big box retailers, supermarkets, small commercial shopping centers. And it's designed really to restrict parking to those people who were supposed to be there and to prohibit people like me and others who are passing through and looking for a place to overnight their rig. And so you do see those signs popping up everywhere. Truck stops, even, they are available for people to use during a certain amount of time, but some of them don't want overnight parking. It overloads the parking lot, it prevents others from finding a spot, and it prevents people from, staying 1, 2, 3, 4 nights. And so the other kind of definition or way to look at no overnight parking is that, sure, it's a sign that prohibits parking, but I'll tell you from my experience, it's where I had some of the most meaningful interactions with people,
Oh,
right?
really?
So, uh, I can recall one point in time near Glacier National Park. I was on my way to the store into Walmart, and I heard somebody calling out, and I thought it was somebody trying to panhandle, looking, to get
Yeah.
some money from me. And I, just sort of ignored it. And when they called out to me again, they said, "Hey, that's a pretty cool van." And so I
Oh,
turned
okay.
around and had a nice conversation with somebody who was a car camper sleeping in an old Chevy Suburban with a
Oh,
small dog.
wow.
And so we had a really cool conversation, and that was at the start of my trip. And so I learned a little bit more about people who were doing the sort of things that I was doing. I was in a van, they were in a car.
Yeah. So why did you choose a van?
This particular van, it's a 2003 Eurovan camper. It had everything I was looking for: a place to sleep, a place to fix meals. It was a single unit that I could drive somewhere as opposed to a trailer or a large
Oh,
motorhome, which is
yeah.
unwieldy, very difficult to find a parking place or to even, back up to engage in tight turns. The vehicle I chose was 18 feet long, and I could navigate it really just about everywhere and park it into a regular parking spot. And as I said, the interior had everything I needed, including a furnace. It
Wow.
carried 12 gallons of fresh water. It had an 8-gallon gray water tank. So, after I did the dishes, I could, capture that water instead of spilling it out into the parking lot. And it had other, features: power windows, reclining front seats. It had captain's chairs that would swivel around and point toward the interior of the van,
Oh, that's
so
nice.
that I could set up the dinette table. And if I chose to, invite three other people on board. I traveled solo,
Right,
so
right.
I could invite three other people on board and have them sit around the dinette table. And so it had pretty much the compact design, had a lot of features that larger RVs and motorhomes have. Maybe not as luxurious, but I wasn't looking for luxury. I was looking for something very practical that would take me across country with an engine that had, well, this particular one had 201 horsepower, so it wouldn't dog out on
Oh,
hills.
yeah,
For
right.
example, Glacier National Park, just to mention that again, which is very hilly and it's a steep climb. So, my van did it without a problem.
Yeah. So, what was your original impetus for the journey? Did you just decide one day, hey, I want to go explore? Or tell us a little bit about the backstory of choosing the van and going on this journey.
Yeah. Yeah, in my particular case, I was looking to slow down the pace of my life. I was a communications professional working long hours. I'd been in that particular position for 14 years. Weekends, holidays, a lot of people go through this, and I just decided a 2 week vacation isn't enough to relax and then, come back to work. So I just decided to slow up the pace. And I've always loved traveling and I've always wanted to travel across the country. And so I was able to put two interests together. And just before I left my job, I was a tech company. I was a manager at a tech company. And before I quit, um, I scouted for the right type of van, and that in and of itself took weeks and months before I was able to locate exactly, what I wanted.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but back to the impetus, it was to slow down. So one day when I felt the timing was right and I had done all of my preparations, I pull the trigger on submitting my resignation. And about a month later, I was on the road heading north.
Wow.
Yeah,
That, that's amazing too. And it's like kind of that whole nervousness of like, okay, am I okay with what I did? And
yeah.
now the big wide
It's
open is out there.
Yeah, it takes courage to do, and not everybody is in a position where they can just, quit their job and leave.
Right,
Um,
right,
my personal situation was such that I had the freedom to do that, and not everybody has that. And by the same token, even those who have that liberty to do it, if they wanted to, aren't willing or ready to just quit a job because that is
yeah,
a significant step in one's career. We all need income, obviously. That's why we work. We also work
right,
because we love what we do. So leaving isn't always something uh, somebody is ready to do.
right.
And I'm not of that ilk. I was ready for the open road. And so I went ahead and followed my passion to the open road and spent a year discovering the US and Canada.
I know, it's so amazing. Exactly. And the van, by the way, on this type of van, do you need like some of the details? Like, do you need a certain kind of driver's license, or since it fits into kind of a passenger category, are you still okay just with a regular driver's license as such, or?
Yeah, a regular driver's license is sufficient to operate a vehicle like this, as well as most Class B motorhomes. Those are the motorhomes that are a little bit larger but have sort of a cab in front,
Yeah,
like a design that looks kind of like an automobile in front.
right,
And
right.
so the beauty about this Volkswagen Eurovan is it drives like a car. In fact, it drives like a big SUV.
Oh,
It's
nice.
comparable in length to, a Suburban or any other large SUV that you see. And so it has about the same turning radius. You can back up easily just by looking, using the rear view mirror. There are windows in the back, so you can see where you're going. You have left and right hand mirrors. So it's very easy to operate. Mine is an automatic transmission, so it has 4 speeds, and so you just put it in gear and you're off to the races, right? It handles on the road, whether driving highway speeds, which I never really went super fast because
Right.
the idea was to slow down. But there were occasions when I, hit it up to 70, maybe 80 miles an hour, and it handled beautifully, very
Oh,
stable on the road.
nice.
So yeah, but a regular driver's license will enable you to drive a van like this.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, because if you pick one up, even for people that might not be willing to like, just ditch their job yet, you can start, taking it out for shorter excursions and seeing how the lifestyle sort of fits you too, kind of try it on.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because you can rent vans like the one that I drove. So there are nationally active rent-a-van companies, if you will,
Yeah.
that have been around for 5, 10, 15 years, and you can try it out. You don't have to spend 100,000, 150, 200,000 even on a van just to find out it may not be for you. But renting a van runs about as much as, let's say, your average hotel room, which is
Right.
great because you're paying for a hotel anyway, and now you've got a room on wheels, so you can go just about anywhere. But renting at first will enable anybody to find out if not just whether this is a lifestyle they want to choose. They don't, you wouldn't have to go that far. You might just want to spend a week on the road in a van, just to have the leeway, the liberty, the freedom to go where you want to go and park on BLM land, for example, where you can stay for up
Yeah.
to 2 weeks without a permit.
Oh, wow. That's quite a long time, That's
Yeah,
a nice,
yeah, 2 weeks. And that's without a permit. You can stay, I believe it's 3 months if you get 2 or 3 months if you get permitted. And in the West where we live, there's lots of
Oh,
BLM
yeah.
property. Not so much in the East where the population density is a little bit thicker. So out here in the West, at least, you can rent a van. You can stay at a national park if you like, or a state park. Uh, those prices, tend to be anywhere. I've paid as low as $20
Oh,
for an
wow.
overnight in a state park, and then you can, plot your course if plot your trip from state park to state park, or maybe you'd like to stay at a KOA campground or some other uh, campground and still enjoy your van and have a 3 day or maybe a 1 week vacation.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, how much planning ahead did you do for your own road trip? Did you do a lot of like plotting out, as you're saying, so you knew where you were going to stay, or was it you wanted the freedom of just how it, I don't know if you remember being a kid.
Yeah.
Sometimes the parents would pile you in the car, and it's like, I think my dad would have a rough idea how many miles we were going to go that day, but people didn't reserve ahead of time even then for hotels. They really relied on, oh, we'll find a place to stay, and but nowadays,
Yeah.
there's a lot of places. And because I tell people a lot about, for instance, if you're going to, say, New England when it's high season, fall foliage, you may not find a hotel room or a motel for miles and miles and miles because everyone's
Right.
staying in them. So now you are essentially, just driving around aimlessly, hoping to find a place to sleep. And
Well, the advantage in a van is you don't have to worry about that.
right,
Right? You
exactly.
travel in your home. You have your bed. You literally just turn around and there's your bed, right? And there's
Yeah.
your stove. So you don't have to worry about a situation like that. But how did I travel? I did not do any planning or
Oh,
very little
really?
planning. Yeah,
Okay.
I followed my curiosity. So, and a lot of us do, well, maybe not a lot of us, but what the freedom that I enjoyed was being able to um, see something that looked interesting without, and spending time there without worrying about, I need to be here by such and such a time because I have a room or a reservation at a campground.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't, yeah, I didn't worry about that. If I saw a sign with the name of a town that looked interesting, if I saw an area geographically that looked interesting, or a road, I mean, obviously I had a road, I had actually a physical road map as opposed to a digital map on a phone. So I had a big Rand McNally uh, road map, right?
Yeah.
Spiral bound. And it had all of the small, medium, and large, highways and byways and country roads on it. And so I would, look down, if it had it on the passenger seat most of the time, or maybe I did a little bit of rough idea in the morning where I
Yeah.
wanted to go. And then I just hit the road and turned off on country roads, scenic highways and byways, which are really among the most interesting that our country has to offer because they take you through very scenic areas of our great country. And I drove a lot of those type of roads because I had the freedom to, and I wasn't worried about being somewhere at a certain time.
Yeah.
So I just traveled and let my curiosity be the timekeeper.
So, what were some of the most unexpected places you stopped? And I know a lot of that's in the book, so just pick one to highlight.
Uh, uh, One of the unexpected places. Let's, uh, well, I mean, I just heard somebody mention it on, uh, actually, it was something on TV just the other day about Custer, um,
Oh,
it was Custer State Park.
yeah.
And I had never heard of it before, and that's in,
So
I don't want to say one of the Dakotas.
it's one of the Dakotas, and I'd have to look. I
And
think it's South Dakota.
yeah, South Dakota. And I had never heard of Custer State Park before. And I saw it on a highway sign, and I said, well, this looks interesting. And so, something else. Just let me stop right there. Something else that really caught me off guard was I was driving again through. This was North Dakota. This was ooh North Dakota, South Dakota, and the sign said center of the U.S.
Oh,
And I said, well, I
gotta
want
stop
to just
here.
check out what the center of North America, I'm sorry,
Oh,
and see
North
what the center
America.
of North America, yeah, so it'd be a little off if it were the center of the US, but the center of North America. And I thought, well, this looks interesting. So I went, I don't know, maybe 60 or 80 miles out of my way just to say I was in the center of North America. It's that
Yeah.
spontaneity that kind of drove my curiosity and my destination. So, when I got there, it actually, funny thing, it was a Chamber of Commerce that did the promotion for the Center of North America. And when I got to the uh, Chamber of Commerce slash Visitor Center, the actual physical um, uh, center of North America was like another 20 miles down the road on
Oh,
private
okay.
on private
Right.
property. So when I said, well, okay, they had a beautiful compass rose in the backyard of the Chamber of Commerce with flags from 50 states and
Oh,
polished
wow.
granite. I
Yeah.
said, yeah, this is close enough for me, right? I took a few
Yeah.
pictures and I was on my way again. That was unexpected. So again, it was actually a billboard that I saw from the Chamber of Commerce, and right along the side of the highway. Said, "Okay, you got me." I went
Yeah,
to
you
check it
got me.
out.
Now I gotta go check it out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but it's things like that along just the side of the road that grabbed my interest. A billboard, a sign, a road that looks promising. Off I went.
I love that. That's the beauty, like you said, of having the van, having a place to sleep, having some supplies, and then it's just a matter of finding a place that's okay to park, which I know you outlined several places. Was it difficult finding places? I mean, in your journeys, did you ever have a time where it was like, okay, I don't see a good spot to park or
Uh, you know, was never really a challenge. I slept in cornfields, sunflower fields, along the side of the road where I felt, nobody was going to sleep. In Canada, making a drive around the Gaspésie Peninsula in Quebec. This is eastern Quebec. Overnighted, here I am toward the end of the day. I was tired, and I got overnight. I this beautiful highway and saw my lights
Oh, wow.
a lighthouse. It was just there, out in the wilderness, and along the coast, the St. Lawrence Seaway. And I said, "Hey, great." But when you get into more urban areas,
Right.
that can become a problem because not every big box retailer allows overnight parking, hence the title to the book. And so many times I found myself driving around looking for a place. And sometimes that meant a neighborhood,
Yeah. Oh, that's
one that
true.
looks safe. Get there late, leave early, don't
Right.
bother anybody. Or maybe a drive out of town a ways to a truck stop or maybe a rest area. But I always found something. It may have taken a little driving. Um, you know, I remember one time in particular in Cleveland, I drove for about 90 minutes just looking for a safe and legal place to park. And
Right.
so, that is a little out of the ordinary, but in my case, it did happen. So, that is something that is kind of to be expected in urban centers where, as you can imagine, uh, illegal parking is more closely monitored.
Right. Right. That's true. Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
right. A lot of neighborhoods too, they have like quote the neighborhood watch signs, and so it's just that gut in your stomach too, like, is this neighborhood feel like you're right? Can I get there late? Nobody's really, I'm not bothering anyone. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, you don't want that rap on the window or
Right.
flashlight waking you up. Like, what are you doing here when you're really just innocently just trying to find a place to sleep, essentially?
Yeah. That really never happened to me. One time I was ticketed. This was Milwaukee. I didn't know the lay of the land. And so I parked along the side of a road near the downtown area, not knowing that in this particular area, the parking restrictions changed every other day. So on
Oh,
one day, you could park on this side of the street, and on the next day, you could park on that side of the street. I didn't know that. So
right,
I woke up one morning with a ticket on the window, and at just how that happened, right? I
right,
stayed
right.
several days in Milwaukee and come to find out just by, chatting, actually had the oil changed there and talking to some of the mechanics, I said, oh, well, you need to get a permit in order to
Oh,
park there. So it wasn't a big problem. I applied for the permit online and I wrote down, actually, how did I do that? I went to the office. That's what I did. I went to the parking office, whatever
yeah.
they call that thing over there, applied for it, and then left it in the window, and I was good to go for a
Oh, well,
couple of
that's good.
nights.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because you
right in
do
the heart of downtown.
probably, yeah, because Milwaukee, I mean, there's probably a lot of towns where you get to a place and you're kind of like, oh, there's more here to explore than just a few hours,
Yeah,
or I want to stay a little longer, and then you have
and
that freedom.
I really enjoyed self-guided tours. I'll just call it self-guided to
Yeah.
where I would, park the van and then, put on my running shoes or walking shoes. I mean, I did do running. I mean, I stayed fit during the whole year on the road by I brought a bike, a mountain bike with me, so I would ride or I would do long distance walking in the morning. And so walking is one way that I discovered a city like Milwaukee. And so I would just, start off with a day pack and then go, check out whatever the city had available. downtown areas, grab a bite to eat on the way, maybe something to drink in a pub or a tavern, and continue to walk, into the evening, maybe through the later part of the night, see what the nightlife does, and just to get an impression of a city like Milwaukee.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like fabulous. Did you
Yeah, it
ever have
was.
did you ever have like encounter like weather issues when you were traveling for a full year? You know,
Yeah.
when you're going across the United States, I know we live in Las Vegas and, for the most part, we don't get quote weather or storms, it's pretty minimal.
Uh, Outside of rain, which I experienced in Nova Scotia quite a bit, there was one instance in, again, South Dakota, where, and they're experiencing weather there right now, actually. There's a heat wave going on there and high winds. And I did, listening to the radio, they were forecasting hail.
Oh no.
And hailstones. I was concerned about, the van getting
Oh yeah.
damaged. And so I was hoping I could find a place to hide the van or get it under cover. So I sped ahead of this hail front or this weather system, and yeah, um, I found um, a self-service car wash.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I just drove the van inside the self-service car wash. It's open on both ends, had
Yeah,
about
it
four bays
is.
to it.
Right.
And then I was able to hide the van in there for a few hours, and I dodged, the hail. That was great. And I drove into town, into Fargo, in fact. And then one night in Fargo, again, there was a hail warning, and I
Oh no.
happened to be at a Home Depot. And Home Depot has a large porte cochere. It's just kind of the way they're constructed.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
in the kind of the lumber area, and
Right.
it's very wide and it's long as well. And so I heard about the hail coming back, and so I just parked the van under the porte cochere, and no damage. Just
Oh
watched the
good.
rain
Yeah.
fall.
That's smart. Yeah, because that's just it. I was just thinking, yeah, you need to find like a town that, well, then with the clearance too, some parking structures, like a multi-level, is the van too high for the clearance on some parking structures, or
It,
this
it,
one's
it Yeah, you could imagine it being as tall as a standard SUV. And
okay.
so for some of the trip, I carried a rooftop carrier where I put a lot of my camping gear and other necessities. And it would have been just a little bit too high to fit in a parking garage.
Yeah.
But for another part of the trip, I dismounted the carrier, and I was able to fit I did, use a parking garage, and I was able to fit in with about that much clearance. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that would make me a
In
little
worst case,
nervous.
yeah, in worst case scenario, you can always let a little air out of the tires, and that'll bring you down as much as, maybe 2 inches if you really seriously need extra clearance up on top. And then, of course, you just air up the tires, when you get back out on the street. But back to the weather for a moment. In Canada, I um, that part of the trip was completed in November and December, in
Oh, it
parts
was.
of those
Oh,
months.
wow.
It was cold and it was snowy. So, when it came to find a place to park, a lot of it was on very cold asphalt or snow. And so the van really wasn't designed as an all year habitation, right? It
Right.
didn't have any insulation, sound insulation, or warming insulation. And so the chill of the asphalt
Oh, yeah.
and the snow, snow and ice, it came right through the floorboards, and it was pretty cold. So I had to layer up the van surface. I didn't always sleep on the bed the way the engineers designed it, uh, because it was always a little bit um, uh, the interior of the van had stuff in it. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Oh, well,
had the
yeah.
rooftop carrier, but I had stuff on the inside. So to
Right.
set up the bed, I had these large yellow cases with the black top. They're very common. Most everybody has them. So I found myself always having to move these cases
Oh,
here and other stuff over there. And, it
right,
was like
right.
20 minutes of moving stuff around on the inside of the van to set up the bed. And when you're tired,
Oh, yeah.
and even if you're not, this is like, oh, I don't want to do this every night. So
Right.
what I did was I had some foam cut about as wide as a submarine bunk, and I laid it on the floor of the van
Right.
from the gear shift and the handbrake lever all the way to the back by the bench seat. It was perfect,
Yeah.
perfect width for a human to sleep on, but it was on the floorboards. And I mentioned that
Right.
in the book. I refer to that as my floorboard futon.
Yeah.
And it got really cold at night. So I figured out a way to add layers using using blankets, and I had some thermal blankets. I had a four season sleeping bag. I
Oh,
would
yeah.
dress, in a tracksuit with a hat and gloves. I overcame I overcame the temperature. A little comical. I don't think everybody is willing to go to those lengths, to stay warm, or maybe even to venture to that part of the country, that part of Canada.
Right.
But I did. I just figured, hey, look, yeah, cold is relative. I had the heater. The van has a propane heater, which warmed up the interior pretty good, as long as I stayed away from the cold from the floorboards.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
worked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I didn't even realize that that was November and December when I was reading those chapters. I'll have to go
Yeah.
revisit that. I mean, because a lot of people would have just, all right, it's time to drop south now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So moving forward, do you have other van plans, other travels planned with your van?
Uh, right now, I've got some other things I'd like to do before hitting out, on the road again. With the van, I have some hiking I'd like to do, which I can, get there using the van, but not necessarily doing a cross country trip like I did before. So the van is garaged right now out of the heat, and I maintain it. I have a battery tender um, working 24 hours. I crank
Oh,
up the engine once a week. I take it on a spin around the block just to kind of keep the mechanics working. But at this moment in time, I don't have any long-term plans for hitting the road again.
yeah. It's just such an amazing journey that you did for a year. So now I've got some quick fun questions to throw at you.
Okay.
Are you a coffee drinker, in the morning, or not a coffee drinker?
I'm a coffee drinker, but I also have caffeine pills
Oh,
because coffee isn't always available. So I have caffeine pills with the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee. So I always had caffeine pills right in the glove box, and I would just pop those, and I was okay to continue driving.
yeah, exactly. Best meal you cooked in the van, you think?
The best meal. I had a crock pot.
Oh,
So because
nice.
I had a converter, an inverter, I was able to operate a crock pot. It takes a little longer, so I had like it threw in a bunch of chicken and potatoes and carrots and celery, and got to wait for it, but that was probably the best one.
Oh, that sounds good. I didn't even think of that. Crockpot idea is a great idea.
Yeah, yeah,
What?
and just like home cooking.
Yeah. So, what do you think the most beautiful place was that you woke up that you saw?
Um, I found a place to park in Niagara,
Oh, wow.
not a 30-second walk from the entrance to Niagara Falls.
Oh my goodness.
It
Wow.
was next to, there was a big casino. This is what I remember. There was a big casino there. And I didn't overnight on casino property. It was city property that didn't have any no overnight parking signs.
Yeah.
So I slept. I was like literally 30 seconds away
Wow.
from, all right, let's call it a minute because I had to walk to the ticket booth to get an all-day
Oh, okay.
pass to
Right.
Niagara. And so that was probably, if you will, one of the most spectacular places I woke up at. And Niagara is absolutely beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Yes. What's one item that you packed that turned out to be indispensable?
Indus hiking shoes,
All right. That's fair. Yeah, you kind of need those, especially
food. Yeah,
especially all season. I'm a hiking boot person too, because they just
yeah,
give your ankles support. They can go mud, rain. They're like all season, all
yeah.
weather.
I'll tell you one thing that I packed that I didn't use the entire time:
Yes, yeah.
golf clubs.
Oh, really? You took golf clubs and yeah, they just kept.
I took six golf clubs, a putter, a driver, and some irons. And I thought, sure, I'm gonna, find a municipal golf course, and I'm gonna unpack, and I'm gonna hit the links. Never happened.
Never
Never
happened.
happened.
No,
No.
there's always something we pack that never gets used. What's one item you um thought you oof. If you could start another van adventure, where would you head first?
Um, the part of the country I was not able to visit during the major tour that I write about is the South. So I would love to adventure down to the South. Um, Georgia, Arkansas, Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, that part of the country. The Blue Ridge Parkway
Oh
is a
wow.
road that I've heard a lot about, and Blue Ridge Mountains are, from what I hear and pictures and videos I've seen, absolutely astounding, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah. What was one thing that you missed most while you were out on the road for a year?
A real bed.
A real bed, yeah. I can imagine. I mean, I get picky with hotel beds, so
Living in a van, it does tend to be a little cramped. You get used to it. The thing about living in a house or an apartment is you can actually move around. Of course, if you have the luxury of a larger van,
right.
um, one that you can actually stand up in. Now, I'll tell you that my van is a so-called pop top.
Okay.
So the top opens up like an accordion. In fact, if you hold up the
I
book
was gonna
there,
say the book has
yeah,
it on
there's a
the front.
picture of it right there. So you can pop the top and stand up to my full height. I'm 6 foot. You can stand up and walk around, and it's great. Um, Other vans like the Ram ProMaster, the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter,
Right.
they're high tops. So you don't ever have to worry about bending over. The thing that really got old pretty fast was if the top wasn't popped, and the only time that it was popped is when I was parked in a national park, state park, someplace where I knew I was legal,
Yeah.
not a Walmart or a Home Depot or any of those places, because that's first clue that, hey, somebody's camping. Um, but if I didn't pop the top, I was bending over like a hunchback
Oh.
and walking around the interior of the van on my knees just so I could, extend my
Oh,
back fully.
yeah.
So it gets old kind of quick. And I think, the van was great. It served my purpose. But I can only imagine how much more comfortable the trip would have been in a high top van with a full-time bed, one that is already mounted or not mounted, but it's not one you have to pull out
Right.
every. It's
Right.
it's not collapsible. It's just a fixed bed, and you sleep on it when you're tired,
Right.
and it just stays there.
Right.
The Eurovan, if you're not sleeping on the floorboards like I did, you have to make and fold out the bed, which can be, as I mentioned, a little bit time consuming.
Well, that and like you said, the aspect of not being able to really stand up, whereas like some of the vans, like the Sprinters and the, Mercedes vans they have out there, most people can, stand up because that would get tiring after a while, just
Yeah.
being all hunched
And
over.
Most Class B vans and your larger RVs, uh, fifth wheels, they're all built so that you can stand straight up, and that is something that I really missed when I was inside the van.
Yeah, right. So then it's less time you want to be in the van, more time you want to be out, which
Right?
depending
It's
on
a
the
reason to get
weather.
out of a reason to get out of the van and to go exploring.
Yeah. Sunrise or sunset? Did you have a preference?
Ooh, um, I tell you, I spent the middle of June and early part of July in Montana and North Dakota.
Oh,
And
wow.
those long nights are really beautiful because there's light in the sky until, 10:30 at night,
Oh,
and the
wow.
sun comes up around the other end, starts getting light around 4 o'clock. And that was
Oh,
a really cool experience. Yeah, the nights are really short, as you know, and they're even shorter the further north you go. And so that was an experience I hadn't ever really had before.
yeah.
And I used that available light just to continue driving on US 2, which was, I referred to US 2 as my therapist because it's not a very busy road. And so you can do a lot of thinking and a lot of, you know, uh, thinking and self analysis and just engaging with the landscape around you. It was very beautiful. And I also slept on the side of a road next to one night, slept next to a grain bin. So that
Oh,
was an interesting
wow.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. Exactly. Just the wide open expanses that, you
Yeah.
know, the western part of the United States is really known for. And some people don't realize the variation in landscapes from the mountains
Yeah.
to the forests. And so mountains
Yeah.
or ocean, a preference?
I think I'm a mountains person. I love the
Yeah.
mountains. Yeah. So, the vistas are ever changing. Snow, glacier, if you're Glacier National Park, thunderstorms, that come quickly. You have to, pay attention to trails, the flora, the fauna. It just
Oh,
seems
yeah.
so much more diverse.
Yeah. Excellent. So, what tips do you have for others that might consider doing what you did and getting a van and going and taking off for a year?
Uh, I would say maybe, s- without a schedule, you know, found, of course, if you have a weekend or just a few days, you probably want to go somewhere and um, spend time at that location. Uh, but I would, suggest maybe slowing up the pace a little bit. I always drove under the speed limit. Not everybody does that because I
Right.
was so busy just looking at the surrounding landscape. And I felt less able to do that if I'm putting the pedal to the metal. So take a physical map. A lot of us today are, so entwined with our phone apps to get somewhere, and it tells us how to get there. It may not always be the best way. What I like about a physical map is you not only see the immediate route you're trying to drive, but you see the larger expanse. You see the
Yeah.
region. You might see the whole state. And so it gives you a better idea of the environment you're actually driving through, and also some roads that look interesting that you might want to, cut off on. Rand McNally has annotated, it's annotated, so it'll tell you where interesting places to visit are. State parks you may not have found on your app, um, places of interest, points of interest, viewpoints, Kodak moments, if you will,
Yeah.
um, and other things like, one in particular outside of Fargo that I found on a road map was the tallest structure in the United States. Well, that world record changed over time, but at one time it was the tallest, well, it was a TV antenna. And I thought, hey,
Oh,
I'm going to
wow.
go check that
Yeah.
out. So,
Yeah.
but take a physical map if you're experiencing this for the first time, or even if this is your 100th time.
I think that's a great tip. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Jurgen. And if you want to pick up the book, it's No Overnight Parking. I believe we're going to have it locally in Las Vegas at Copper Cat Books. And it is also already available online. And tell everyone what your website is and where they might pick up your book.
Oh, sure. Uh, it's my name, JuergenBarbusca.com, and my website will give you information about who I am, a little bit about the book, some of the reviews I've gotten, and places you can purchase the book.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jurgen, for your time today.
All right, April. Thanks for having me.